This episode of Navel Gazing is sponsored by valleygivesback.org. Adding a Valley charity to your estate plan creates a lasting legacy that tells future generations what causes matter to you. Your action will inspire others to follow your lead and make a difference. With a planned gift, you have the power to impact the Valley community forever without affecting your current lifestyle. Learn more at valleygivesback.org, an initiative of the Valley Community Foundation. Plan now, give later, and impact tomorrow at valleygivesback.org.
For hundreds of years we brought you the news. Printed the info, we gave you the clues. Owners' profits were always sky high. Changing market now threatens our lives. Post-literation, critical reading, dumbed down nation, signs of inbreeding, TV sucking ideas from our head, public discourse just about dead. We'll ride the dinosaur, yeah, ride the dinosaur.
Hey everybody, welcome to Navel Gazing, the Valley Indy Podcast. This podcast is made possible thanks to valleygivesback.org. Please visit that website right now. My name is Eugene Driscoll. I'm a reporter with valleyindy.org, and I'm joined by controversial Valley Indy reporter Ethan Fry. Good morning, Ethan.
Good morning, good morning.
Today we're ripping off the cable news networks, putting on our pundit hats, touch upon two topics, basically, that don't seem connected, but through the magic of the internet, they are. One, a free lunch program in Ansonia, and two, how reporters should use social media, or more specifically, how Ethan Fry's social media use is constantly annoying me and creates headaches that I have neither the time nor inclination to deal with. All right, so some background. We're recording this episode on Thursday, September 6, 2018. Ansonia Public Schools recently announced that all students in the school district now qualify for a government program that provides free lunches for students. The free lunch announcement was posted to various places on Facebook, where it was greeted warmly, for the most part, from what I read. But to be honest, I in no way read every reaction to the news on Facebook. This all happened, I guess this announcement came, correct me if I'm wrong, it was like a week or two before Labor Day, and we were off and doing other stories.
Yeah,
we had a pretty.
You mentioned
busy,
they sent out a press release and we didn't get it like in our inboxes, but they posted it on the website of the school district on August 29.
So anyway, that's neither here nor there. But at about 6:30 this morning, Thursday, September 6, 2018, I, Eugene Driscoll, received an email containing a letter and two screenshots from Facebook attached to the email. One of the screenshots showed a comment under the post about Ansonia's free lunch program. And the person making the comment under the topic wrote, quote, Ansonia public schools, with public being in capital letters, ... Guess no one thought about the private school. The second screenshot showed 4 reactions on Facebook. You know, a reaction can be a like or whatever on Facebook.
Angry.
Right. Yeah, I don't remember them all. Yeah, it can be a lot.
Yeah.
So it was 3 thumbs up and a laughing emoji from Ethan Fry sitting across from me right now. And the letter, which was signed, which accompanied those screenshots, and I'm withholding the author's name because he or she did not want to discuss the letter or publish it with a name attached. I offered to publish it as a letter to the editor because I think it has some good info in it. Like it enlightened me on some things that I was not aware of concerning this program, because I have not really looked into this program in any way, and we didn't get or receive the press release about it. We didn't publicize it in any way. But I also think it can start a little conversation about how modern local journalism has changed and the pitfalls you and I can face as an organization and as individuals over how we react to things on social media. So here, I'm just going to read the letter. And it was addressed to Ethan, but it was sent to me as well.
CC'd, yeah.
It was, yeah. So I got a letter, and here it is. I write to provide you with some background information so that perhaps you will no longer find laughable or comical an opinion that Assumption School should have been considered in the BOE's grant application for free meals. While I've previously shrugged off comments where you've generalized that all members of a certain political party were racist and other political generalities, I feel compelled to address this issue as it not only perpetuates a false representation of the student population at Assumption, but also fails to acknowledge that under the NSLP, Assumption students are eligible for reduced and free lunch. It is a benefit extended to all children, regardless of race, religion, etc. This program provides meals in a variety of settings, including private daycare, public schools, and to Catholic schools. Assumption parents have had the option to participate in NSLP for over a decade. The Ansonia BOE charges Assumption students for the meals provided under the program. The Assumption parents fill out the same forms and abide by the same income guidelines as the public school student population. It should be noted that during the summer months, when the Ansonia BOE offers free breakfast and lunch to residents under 18, it also provides these meals to various camps in town, even those privately funded. I presume that the emoji used was in response to your belief that the student population at Assumption can afford to pay for their own lunches. Some students enrolled in our school do receive free and reduced lunch. Even if your presumption was correct, that Assumption children should be excluded because they could afford lunch, understand that the new benefit being extended to the BOE students benefits all students previously categorized as students who could, quote, afford, unquote, to purchase lunch without the need to have it subsidized. Arguably the same population that you laughed at, quote unquote, when an opinion was expressed relative to their participation in the program. I welcome you to visit the Assumption School to learn more about the student population, its teachers, principal, as well as the various financial aid and scholarships programs. I am sure that many of your preconceived assumptions relative to this school will be proved baseless. I've always been a supporter of your organization and understand that as an individual, you are entitled to your own beliefs. I hope that this email can provide you with some background to become better familiar with the facts surrounding the NSLP and the Assumption population so that you will not find someone's opinions inquiring into same so, quote unquote, comical. Our AC just flipped. So that's the end of the letter. So Ethan Fry, I ask you, if you're willing to talk about this, why did you choose to react to that original comment with a laughing emoji? And then my follow-up would be, why did you feel the need to react to this in any way at all?
I mean, I take issue with a lot of the things said in that letter. And I don't know, to the question of why did I click the laughing emoji? I guess it just goes down to like a bedrock belief that we should have a separation of church and state in this country, and that a suggestion that taxpayer dollars should be allocated to a private or private religious school, I think, yes, is laughable. I realize that there are tax dollars, I get like indirectly, as the letter writer describes, in terms of participation in the school lunch program being allocated to private religious schools, but I don't think that should be the case. And yeah, like in terms of why react to it at all, like I see your point that, shouldn't we just stay on the sidelines or whatever? I could understand that point of view. I just, I don't know what to say really other than that. I have beliefs that I express sometimes, and maybe it's a mistake for me to do that, but I do nonetheless. But
what sort of was interesting about this to me, when I got the letter, the first thing I did was get angry because I'm like, why am I dealing with Ethan Fry's social media use at 6:30 in the morning? But then I was confused as to what the letter was about, and I asked for some clarification. I remember that thread being it was out on an Ansonia community page because Facebook has devalued news organizations, in my opinion, and I think this can be proven by past articles and Facebook statements and all that the media has covered. They're devaluing news organizations such as ours because of what happened with all the manipulation that happened in the most recent or 2016 national election, and they've given that traffic to community groups. And so now I see volunteers in the community regularly dealing with the headaches that I've been dealing with for 10 years and beyond that when you try to manage an internet community of comments. When you try to walk that line between. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. That's where this comment comes from. But I thought, okay, so Ansonia free lunch program has been extended to all students. People were saying, that's great, that's great, that's great. And then one person gets in there and says, but what about the private schools? I took that comment to just be indicative of what happens on social media each and every day, especially in Ansonia, where people argue about everything. It's just part of our nature on social media. So I kind of, and I guess I thought your laugh was like, oh my God, people will argue about anything, including free lunch programs for kids.
I think there's an undercurrent too, like the biggest controversy that we see comments sort of mushrooming every time it comes up is the conflict between the Board of Ed and the city. And I think that there was an element or a flavor or whatever you want to call it in that thread about the school lunch program that it was like, I'm trying to think of a way to say this, but I think that like that sort of played into it, that set against that background.
That's to my point, because I think one of the things that you and I have to be careful of, and I'm of course far from perfect, but there's sometimes where it's, as a reporter, it's better to just shut up. It's better to adopt that Goodfellas belief when Henry Hill, as a teenager, gets arrested for the first time for selling cigarettes out of the back of the tractor trailer. And what does De Niro tell him? De Niro's character: always keep your mouth shut.
I was watching Dances with Wolves.
Always keep your mouth shut. Never rat on your friends. And that's, of course, a horrible criminal, psychopath view.
The rule of the streets.
But yeah, if you have, it's street smarts. If you, as a reporter, I mean, I think you're absolutely correct. Ansonia is on pins and needles when it comes to education funding. That lawsuit, the article we published last night where the State Board of Ed has opened up a bureaucratic probe of some kind into this dispute over education dollars. So I think it's more important than ever for us to be old school and just not weigh in on that stuff, or don't leave it open to interpretation. There's other, I guess, because I think this can come back to hurt us, and it has, I think, as an organization, as two guys trying to report the news without being accused of bias. Stuff like that, just doing an emoji with no explanation hurts us. Because people are already out to get you. They've told me. It's been brought up. We had a public official grab my camera at a meeting.
Well, he was out to get you.
I'm blaming
you. He
you.
loves me.
I
can understand that.
People think like you're a puppet of mine sometimes.
Yeah,
And here's my proof. You're the only one that's getting feedback from your social media posts. You had that post months and months ago where you dropped an F-bomb on a guy.
Yeah, and I shouldn't have used.
And I get it's a hard
vulgarity.
thing because the whole way you address them. You got to remember that these are people that you're covering. These are sources. They're people in your community. You got to handle it with. Is modicum a word? Is that the word? You got to be more respectful.
A modicum
of respect.
Sure.
Because I think what happens is, as reporters, we start to be contemptuous of our readers because we're annoyed by them, because they're always commenting and they're always asking us questions and they're always filling in holes in our stories. Like, I think that's natural. We just have to watch out for that because we don't want that to turn into an emoji that triggers a 550-word letter.
Yeah, I think I have a pretty good record of, if somebody points out an error or something we didn't report or whatever, it's okay, like we'll try to follow up on that. Thanks for pointing it out. I like that thing months ago. I would argue that the person who I was responding to was just blatantly in the wrong. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, but there's still no. I mean, there's still no excuse for pulling off a F-bomb as a. You're representing more than you. Sure. Because what you do affects this whole organization and my family and people that you have no. I think we just have to be more careful.
Yeah. But I mean, the distinction I'm trying to draw is that person wasn't saying like, I read a story you wrote and like I think it wasn't like that. It was the expressing a neo-Confederate viewpoint that I don't think has any place in. Well,
from what I remember, they just
society.
They just stated something that was just factually wrong. I mean,
that was still neo-Confederate. Yes,
but I guess like it's what I don't remember exactly. But we have to. It's our behavior though. Like you know what I mean. Like I guess like when I drive through towns in the valley, like I make sure I don't have a busted headlight. And maybe I'm just paranoid, but I think that's a good way to be as a reporter because it makes you're a better reporter if you always assume someone's watching you and they're out to get you. And I think it's true in Ansonia. So that's all. And I think some of that letter is indicative of that because they bring up this whole other thing about how I don't even remember. I'd have to read it again. Something about racist politicians and all that. I guess people. Yeah, I mean
that's one thing I would take an issue with, and like we're essentially publishing an anonymous op-ed here, which I guess is sort of the norm journalistically nowadays. But
I think
that person sort of smearing me without stating who they are. I don't know about that, but I would question I don't know. I've pointed to policies that have been promulgated by the administration of the president and stuff like that as questioning whether they're racist or not. I don't think every member of the Republican Party is racist, but I would think that it's borne out by the op-ed that was published in the New York Times yesterday. The reporting around Bob Woodward's recent book that there are clearly members of that political party who find the policies of the administration troubling, and it was more sort of pointing out.
Yeah, who knows exactly who knows what that person is exactly precisely referring to, and my thing about even doing a podcast on this, even though I don't think the person wanted this discussed. I just think in certain cases it's in our interest to be transparent because we call upon others to do so. And my point is simply that. I mean, I am not a supporter of Donald Trump. I think he's dangerous. I've said that from the get-go, which is, should I just shut up about that or not? But I'd rather have it out there than not because of all the things that he says about the press and just all his Twitter feed. Just read the guy's Twitter. But I think there's a better way to walk the line because I haven't had anybody come back and you've been attacked now two or three times.
I'm sure more outspoken about it and perhaps illiberal in terms of enunciating it. But I guess I would say that, like, regardless of how allegedly intemperate I am about it, I would ask anyone who's criticizing that to point to anything I've written or my coverage of any local event saying this is that's where your bias is reflected in this story.
And my fear,
I don't think you could.
Yeah, but my fear is that if we continue to basically we're talking about having a big mouth. And we continue to shoot off our mouths sometimes. And look, I do a horror movie podcast where I curse like a sailor, and every day I'm like, oh, is that going to come back and cause me to lose my job? But I justify it in my head, but I could be absolutely wrong too. But my concern is that us shooting our mouths off sometimes can interfere with what our daily mission is, and our missions become much more complicated because of what's happening on the national level and our own personal strong belief system. Concerning national stuff. And that letter it triggered me because I think it's someone who's clearly reading every single tweet and Facebook post you post.
That and I'd also
and
say
building a case against you.
Thanks for reading.
Makes me
flattered.
Which makes me nervous because that's the whole thing. It's like, how do we, our mission is to build a stronger community by creating an informed community. And then part of that, basically we're not supposed to get along with the mayor's office all the time in any of these towns. If we're doing our job there, of course, people are going to be angry at us, but there is this whole other thing going on as the national debate sort of devolves into this insanity on Twitter. How do we not let that stuff affect us? And I don't have the answer, and I'm not lecturing you now. I've stopped lecturing you, but it's a weird position to be in because at the same time, I've said from day one, we should use social media like the rest of the planet. And that includes making mistakes, having meltdowns on Facebook. I've argued with readers for an entire day in threads on
More
Facebook.
than a day, yeah.
Although I haven't done that. I have finally learned to let that stuff go. By and large, you always have let that stuff go. But,
some notable exceptions, I guess. But I guess I would come from it from the point of view of be yourself. And that, there's nobody. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of people who are apolitical, don't know or care what's going on and stuff that affects them. And I don't think that. I think everybody
drives
should
me
be
nuts.
informed.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I guess the part is it our place, or are we being arrogant sometimes? Because I know I am. I've gotten accused of this.
Sure. Yeah.
On my Facebook page, I'll post whatever. I mean, I think I try to just highlight the great reporting being done by other agencies who daily mission is to cover national politics. But I worry that I'm just coming across as an arrogant jerk, and I've had people say that. People unfollow me, or some of those people I hold. I don't respect them because they're just disappeared to Instagram to watch, to look at pictures of
Kim
food,
Kardashian,
who just bury their heads in the sand. So I get what you're saying, and I agree with you.
And I think,
but we should not be jerks.
I know this. It's not what you're saying that we should do, but there is the point of view that you should just be a sphinx and be inscrutable and not say anything about what you believe. And I think that we should. If we express our beliefs, then people will know where we stand. And, I think it'd be just as bad to try to hide that. Because, there's people I talk with every day who know that I'm not a conservative, but will still talk to me because they know I'm fair and accurate in terms of being a reporter. And that's all I've ever tried to be. But I could see your point that it could complicate things, and I guess I would just return to I mean, in that issue specifically, I just think it's sort of like a bedrock principle of our country going back hundreds of years that. Public money shouldn't go to
what do I got to hear from you for?
I mean, and this isn't.
Although here's the thing. I mean, here's the thing. I had no idea. What I really liked about that letter, and part of the reason I also read it, is that I had no idea that Catholic schools even qualified for the program. I assumed that Catholic schools did not get the money. So I thought the letter was enlightening. I wish we could have been allowed to just publish it as is with a name because it had a lot of good information. I was also amazed in the thread that, I mean, the genesis of this program goes back. I mean, anybody can look it up, just Google it. Because somebody said, well, this just teaches families to rely on government cheese for for support. And it's like, this goes back to 1946. This came out after World War II. So, I mean, unless all those people are idiots and we just had generation of idiots buying
I'm sure
into this.
if the program didn't exist and was proposed now, I think you'd find a lot of opposition
and
based around that point of view.
And there's an effort to scale it back too. But I was just amazed at
Which
some of the it's people just weighing in on Facebook without thinking of ramifications because people just react.
Yeah.
And that's one of the pitfalls of social media. So I thought the letter that I read, people can go back and listen to it, had a lot of information that I had no idea. I thought missing in everything about this, because Hearst they published something on this. I don't know if it was exactly a news story. It was more like, well, sometimes we take a lot of press releases and just put it right on the site, label it a press release. So hopefully you know what that means, and so we can do, dedicate our time to doing other stories that we're looking into. I mean, the fact of the matter is that this is indicative of people struggling.
Yes.
A lot of families in Ansonia and Derby. My kid goes to a school, everybody gets a free lunch. A lot of people can't afford this, and that's indicative of, and you can blame them, they're just lazy or however people, and I've seen that on Facebook. Okay, have that opinion, but you can't deny the fact 78% of students in Ansonia qualified for a school lunch last year, according to the Connecticut Post. And that was probably a figure from the school district. So there's 2,400 kids, I think. So that's like, I did the math on this earlier. That's 1,872 kids. So now the change is that an additional 528 get the program. So that's really what gets lost in all this. I think that people are struggling. The economy is on the upswing, and GDP is up and all that, and yet 78% of the students qualify for free or reduced lunches. So anyway,
that's the crux of the matter, is that if I'm not saying everybody who goes to Assumption School that can afford.
Well, that was another. Yeah,
whatever.
I didn't take that from your article, from your comment at all. But maybe that's because I know you. And like I said, I thought you were just.
I just think that
everybody reacts negatively to everything.
The Catholic Church, if they want to have a sectorian school,
and again, I don't care. I guess my question,
they could give free lunch to the kids.
And my reaction to that is, who cares?
Sorry.
That's for other people to tackle. I mean, the one thing though, we thought about sending my son to Catholic school,
and I went to a Jesuit college. I guess I'm a hypocrite. A lot of my family members and friends are Catholic. I don't think it's some totally evil organization. I think there are some significant flaws. In it. All
right, great. But we leave that for your book. When you retire, write your book on all that. But my point being, one thing that I was taken back by the letter. I don't think there are
positive aspects to it as an organization, schooling wise and stuff. I just don't want my tax dollars to support it.
And I guess I'm saying I don't want to hear it. I just don't want to hear it, because you're just basically taking a dump on our readers, and it's just, to me, that's just bad. Part of your job as a reporter, or my job, is you have to I'll go back to Henry Hill. You got to be street smart or a little political, and there's no point jabbing somebody in the eye for no reason. Is it worth jabbing somebody in the eye when those are pretty basic statements that it's not? I don't think it's our job to sort of get on the soapbox and espouse those beliefs. People don't want to hear it, especially if we're just sort of kicking them in the shins. But I was taken aback by the assumption that I never thought rich kids are going to Catholic school. I thought that stereotype went away a while ago. I mean, it's because it's if you have childcare, you're probably paying at least $12,000 a year for childcare, somehow living paycheck to paycheck doing that, speaking from experience. And I thought I couldn't afford Catholic school. And then I looked into it and said, I'm just going to be rolling my childcare dollars over to the local Catholic school. But I never got my kid baptized or confirmed. And confirmed would come later. I didn't do the communion or any of that stuff. So I feel like I'd be a fraud. But anyway, that's my opinions on that. I don't want to get fired or lose all our funding over a laughing emoji. Because if you look at the work we did this week alone, and Ethan carried the site. Here's a review of our top 5 stories of the week. And it bothers me that letter, you know what I mean? Like you do all these stories and an emoji prompts the response. Number 5, Ansonia Planning and Zoning postpones discussion of Castle Lane application. One thing that we do differently than other news organizations in the state of Connecticut, we answer people's questions. And a person had a good question on Facebook yesterday, and you kind of answered it in a previous story, but a lot of times people don't like to click links and go back. So perhaps I should, as an editor, should have included this into the story. But how does this application, Mr. Ethan Fry, here's something I'd like to hear from you. How does this compare to, let's say, the first application for this controversial subdivision in a residential part of Ansonia, which neighbors are basically worried it's too much for the area, too much for the neighborhood?
The original application was for housing subdivision. I'm not sure. Like maybe 20 houses or I'll just look it up quickly.
Yeah, and I'll.
But it was a housing subdivision, like separate individual houses on different lots to be built there. This application, 23 home subdivision proposed in
that was
Ansonia.
the original.
That was 2011.
2011. Okay.
This one is for sort of, I guess, individual units, but of age-restricted housing.
And that's a big change, right? Now it's age-restricted?
Yes, that was...
so the planners can't say, it's going to impact our
20
schools.
units of age-restricted housing, yeah. And then with like a clubhouse. And let me just like that.
Ask you another question. I think the person who posed that question... Oh, wait, I'm going to get a phone call on here. Are we still on? Are we still on? Still on. Say something into your mic real fast.
Hello.
Okay, sorry.
Sibilance.
The person who posed the question assumed that the previous applications had been rejected. Is that... The
original application was rejected a couple years. I think that was appealed. A judge sided with the P&Z, the Planning and Zoning Commission, in rejecting it. Then there was another application a couple years after that for a 10 or a 15 home subdivision instead of a 20 home subdivision. Eventually there was or a 23 home. Eventually, there was an application filed for a 10-home subdivision. Again, all the neighbors came out against it, said, this is going to, espoused a lot of beliefs about what it would do to the neighborhood and wells and stuff in the area.
Oh, and then the city said, hey, we'll buy it.
Yeah, there was a discussion about the city buying it and keeping it as open space, and they got a grant for some of the money. And then there was a agreement signed that said, essentially an option to buy. Excuse me. But then the city was never able to get enough of the money to purchase the property outright. And now, just earlier this year, the new application was filed, and there was a public hearing that I forget whether we were at another meeting.
There's something else going on.
We were off that day or whatever, but we didn't cover that public hearing specifically. But according to a story, I believe, in the Register, again, vocal opposition to the project from the residents in the neighborhood. And just last week, there was a planning and zoning mission where this was on the agenda. Probably a dozen residents in the neighborhood showed up, but they had just gotten the transcript back from that public hearing. So they said, let's not discuss this at length tonight. Let's push it off till next month. And now it's scheduled to be discussed at their meeting next month again.
All right, look at that. That was our 5th most read story of this week. Number 4, and this is amazing because this wasn't shared on social media, which is where a bulk of our traffic comes from. Jack Hunt Day, September 14th in Ansonia. Just posted yesterday.
Right, yeah.
So that's a story with a lot of interest. And we came back from vacation. We posted literally 20 news items yesterday. So that was quickly pushed down the page, but people found it. So
and
I guess that says a lot.
I didn't even realize that because there was a vote to name that practice field after Jack Hunt, the legendary Ansonia football coach, I think back in 2014. But this is they're going to formally have a ceremony and put a sign there, I guess. So it's sort of a new development.
So that was number 4. Number 3, these are all Ansonia stories.
Copper City, baby.
Thank you. I don't want any Ethan Fry emojis on any of these stories on Facebook, if I may make that. Although it's I can't, of course. I'm just gently suggesting that. There's no punitive action I could take or anything like that. I'm an old man, though. I've seen enough to know I've seen too much. Number 3,
we're not.
State School Board starts investigation into Ansonia school funding dispute.
Also, less than 24 hours ago posted.
Climbing the charts. There is definite interest in that story. Number 2. Oh, I like this one. Derby property owners, you'll start paying for the sewer referendum soon. That is a repost. I bumped up. I got my sewer bill over the weekend in Derby, or maybe it was Friday. Yeah, I mean, geez.
That talking
earlier
fee?
About the capital fee, and $400 my regular annual fee, and I just paid it all, and then $257.
Okay. Is it like the taxes where you could split it up into 2, or
you can? I would encourage Derby residents to read their bill. I couldn't. It's a little confusing. I just paid it, and now I have. I got a couple of grand due to the IRS that I'm struggling to figure out how I'm going to pay it at the end of this month because I stupidly decided to just rip the Band-Aid off with WPCA. So that's depressing. But anyway, I thought it would be worthy to bump up this podcast interview we did with Jack Walsh, the volunteer chairman of the WPCA, in which he explained in great detail that this bill would be coming. Because I know people had to be shocked. Even I was. I was like, wait, I thought I paid this already. I had not. And the number 1 red story this week, Ethan Fry wrote 3 of our top 5. Seymour, including number 1, Seymour home invasion suspects due in court. And that was the bizarre tale out of the town of Seymour over alleged drug dispute, narcotics sale dispute, and PlayStations and all kinds of ugly things. But anyway, that was the most read story of the week. So I guess in closing, I will ask that I think those 5 stories are a mix and a good representation of what the Valley Indy hopes to do each and every day. We fall short many times. We're getting old and burnt out. I'll admit that. It weighs on our soul sometimes. I would ask that people look at that and weigh that against over whether, say once a week we're jerks on social media, because it's going to happen. But I think I hope the good outweighs any personal disagreements we may have over things in the world today, in this crazy town of a world. Ethan, is there anything you want to say? Is there anybody else you want to offend maybe as we close it out, since you wrote all those stories?
There's a lot I'd want to say, but I guess in the interests of comity, COMITY, and decorum, I'll hold off. I'll leave it to my Facebook page. Just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, just be reasonable.
And I guess this is it's one of the reasons I
started eating gum. No, what'd you say? Go ahead.
I don't know. I've been a lot more reticent recently. But when I started here, people I would know around, I'd meet reporting, would friend request me on Facebook, and I'm yeah, sure. But I've become a lot more reticent recently about accepting
I'm the same
those
way.
requests.
Hey, I've lost friends, man. The guy from my wedding party. I don't have many friends in this world. I had 2 people in my wedding party. A guy I went to Iona with. Another, I went to an Irish Jesuit college. And I can't talk to the guy.
Technically.
Yeah, what did I say?
Jesuit.
No, it's not
I went
Jesuit.
to Jesuit school.
Irish Christian Brothers.
Go Stags.
So I can't talk to the dude. I had to unfriend him. We've exchanged really angry emails. He started up in my opinion, he started his own podcast, but he's also part of a PAC that raises money, I guess, for Trump-like candidates in the state of Florida. And every day he's complaining about biased media.
Divulged on
And
the podcast?
I asked him that. I said, I just saw that you're the treasurer of this PAC. Shouldn't that be on? When do you mention that? You're not. How do you call out, the national media for being in bed with the Democrats when you have that happening? He says, well, when he mentions it, when the PAC is mentioned, he brings it out. Which is, it should be a banner on your site if you had any type of understanding of ethics. And this guy's a former reporter that I got a job at a newspaper, so I understand about countries we're being torn apart.
Like the only
you're guess, tearing me apart. Where's that
I guess
from?
What I'd add is that regardless of any of our views on the national stuff, pretty much everybody accuses us of being biased.
That's true.
Locally.
Yeah, you especially. So, well, that's why I'm telling you. You have a target on your back. I've never. I mean, it's a little insane to me, and it's all that Ansonia school funding thing. It's all, everybody thinks whatever they're thinking. So
I like people on Democrats accuse me of being biased before, or accused us of being biased.
No, and I'm saying both sides, everybody, everybody, because it's that issue is.
I mean, the
people.
episode involving you and your camera, you were, accused.
I blame you. I think because people think I'm the
puppet master,
right. And listen to this podcast. I don't have any control over this guy. I'm telling him to please stop being a jerk on social media. Doesn't listen to me. All right. This is Eugene Driscoll on behalf of Ethan Fry saying, see you next time.